Hey, so what makes a perfect takeaway? Well, I think my answer is going to kind of shock you, but right after this, let's do a little bit more in-depth of a study into what takeaways have worked over the years and who's in the Hall of Fame with takeaways that weren't so great. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. If you get some value out of this video, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could also use the help. Okay, so you can break down the takeaway into kind of two components. One of them is going to be the track of the handle. The handle should be on a gentle arc to the inside, just like that. Of course, the club head, we also want it to arc as well, but the handle is probably more important what it's doing than anything else. Now, the second component, I believe, to the takeaway is how early you start to put this right wrist into extension. So let me give you an example. Very common takeaway from the, quote, old days, very much more in vogue than it is today, would be to get the handle path going back on the arc, but start to cock this wrist back and set it a little bit sooner. Now, see, that appears as though now my takeaway has gone to the inside, when it really hasn't, because I'm going to take this wrist and I'm going to be bending it back as I get to the top of my swing anyway. So what difference does it really make in what order you do things? So really the demarcation line here for takeaways is really interesting. It's about 1992 or 1993 when this takeaway starts to become out of fashion. This is because this is about the year where the portable video camera starts to be readily available, widely available to the consumer. I remember getting my first Sony Handycam in about 1993. It was about $1,100 or $1,200, and it was worth every penny because I could finally film my golf swing and look at it frame by frame in slow motion very clearly. So it was a huge advance. Golf teachers were all starting to use these portable cameras and starting to see the non-geometric nature of the takeaway like this, and they decided back then that this was no good, that the takeaways that were going to the inside like this, suddenly these were not good anymore. So we can take a look at Nicklaus, we can take a look at Snead, we can take a look at Hogan, take a look at somebody like a Raymond Floyd, really was the epitome of that, where that club really got taken inside. But is it really? Or are they just setting the right wrist earlier than other people? So let me not confuse that with a takeaway where you start to pull the handle inside this way. Now see, that's different. The head is inside, yes, but the handle is now also sucking to the inside, where now you're either going to come back down from the inside this way, and that's going to be problematic, or you're going to have to do the looping over the top move. So be careful when you look at your takeaway and examine it, that at least you get the handle of the club arcing back on a subtle arc like this and not have it sucking in. And again, the key to that measurement, fist and a thumb here, fist and a thumb off the right pocket, and that should get you started with this end of the stick moving on the correct arc, at least reasonably close. So nowadays, after you get this 1993 demarcation line, now suddenly it becomes hip to be very geometric and, quote, on plane in your takeaway, just like that. And so what have I done here? I've simply started to restrict or delay the action of this wrist cocking back like this. In fact, the biggest drill they would tell you to do back then would be to do this. Keep that head outside the handle as long as you can. And notice what I'm doing there is I'm not cocking the wrist back at all. In fact, I might be even flexing the wrist this way as I take it back, simply to trick the camera into thinking that I'm keeping the club this way, feeling like I'm not going to get stuck. So my end position on the takeaway is this, and I'll tell you why in a minute, is I'd prefer that you not get the handle going back. Here's one combination of handle out, club in. So it's not the cocking of the wrist and getting the club inside that's the damage. It's the handle working away that would make you have to go on a loop again. So I like to have you reasonably on the correct arc with the handle this way. Again, fist and a thumb here, and taking it up from here, rather than getting away from you or sucking it in. So I think getting this end of the stick on a reasonable arc, never worrying about it being perfect. So you shouldn't be obsessing over getting your takeaway perfect, and here's why. Look at all of the Hall of Fame, all-timer top 10 players in history that didn't take the club back straight. Look at all the players who've been successful sucking it to the inside. Look at all the players who've been hugely successful taking it to the outside like this. How about Jim Furyk? How about Fred Couples? They took the club way back on the outside going back, and they're Hall of Fame players as well. Super, super successful. It makes you think. The question is the elephant in the room, and that is, does the takeaway really even matter? It's really not that important. What's more important for you to focus on is to make sure that impact zone is quality. So rather than obsessing over your takeaway, and again, I recommend handle on a reasonable arc, and it's okay to start an early set of the right wrist like this, which of course would make the club look like it's inside, but it's really not. Because if I just delay it, I can get it to look like this, but at some point, I'm going to cock that wrist anyway. So it feels to me much more natural and athletic, as it does to a lot of people. This is why it was so popular back in the days before the cameras got a hold of us. But again, instead, focus more of your attention on the impact zone. In some cases, they'll even fix your takeaway and make it better. But really where the rubber meets the road is where that ball is going to be hit going through it. And so I wouldn't spend that much time on the takeaway. In the end, it doesn't end up being all that important unless your takeaway is just way out of bounds. So keep this in mind as you practice. Practice more on the important stuff, impact zone, worry less about the takeaway. Hey, thanks so much for watching my rant. I hope you'll head over to my website, hititlonger.com, and check out over 200 more great videos and articles that are going to help you get better. Some really great products over there on the Pro Shop that will help you get faster and improve your swing in general. Thanks for supporting my channel. Help me get to 100,000, and as usual, I will see you in the next video, or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.